Hi there, Mouseketeers! Welcome to the Disneyland Beat, where our toes tap to a Disneyland drum.
And we always whistle while we work.
I'm Amy.
And I'm TC. You know, some Disney attractions can have such a strong impact on us when we ride them as kids, defining memories so special that they stick with us for the rest of our lives.
Today, we're looking back at bygone Disney attractions that we rode at Disneyland and Walt Disney World when we were young, and that were so special to us that we wish we could ride them again.
Come on into the parks with us.
Like, subscribe, and stick around.
Disneyland is your land.
Come seek an adventure into your pirates, eh?
Make the jump to life speed.
We rode Captain EO at Epcot, and as kids, I can tell you, we thought EO was the epitome of cool. This 3D science fiction movie attraction is unlike anything you can currently find in the parks.
Captain EO stars Michael Jackson, and it was written by George Lucas and directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Pretty big names here. And it was one of the first 4D attractions that we can think of, combining a 3D film, effects, and lighting.
The attraction combines Disney and movie magic with unbridled enthusiasm and incredible dance moves. The whole thing is a fantastic sci-fi spectacle, being equal parts impressive and ridiculous.
And of course, Captain EO could be found at both Epcot and the Tomorrowland Theater at Disneyland.
You've seen the tracks when you visit, and you've heard the stories. And those who visited the park before 1995 might have had the chance to ride the Peoplemover at Disneyland.
Of course, you can still ride the Peoplemover at Walt Disney World, but unlike Walt Disney World's magnetic induction version, Disneyland's ran on tire drive, which allowed it to handle some elevation and higher speeds. It was a very different experience.
The ride wandered around and through Tomorrowland and its attractions, and the section over the Autopia had some fun hills winding around and next to the track.
The rocket rods added a thrill aspect to the experience, and they took the track much faster, ultimately leading to its demise. But they were both incredible attractions that we miss very much. We visited Hollywood Studios back in the 90s when it was called MGM Studios. At the time, one of the defining experiences of the park was the Great Movie Ride. It was housed in the main weenie of the park, the elaborate Grauman's Theater, which was refurbished recently and reopened as Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
The Great Movie Ride was an enormous and long, dark ride that explored some of the best movies ever made, bringing them to life with elaborate sets and impressive animatronics.
Disney went all out with this ride. They didn't hold back. The ride is extensive and elaborate and long, with scenes from some of the best movies ever made. The ride was also narrated by live cast members, and they got into the show too, interacting with the animatronics to create the story of the ride that was woven through all the stories of these movies. It was really awesome.
Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is cool, but this ride will be missed.
At Disneyland, the Skyway that connected Fantasyland and Tomorrowland offered up some incredible views that have never been replaced since this ride closed. It was built during Walt Disney's lifetime, and in Fantasyland it was themed to a Swiss chalet, as the gondola came from a Swiss company.
Affectionately known as the Sky Buckets, the ride provided the best view of Disneyland possible, allowing visitors to see down into Fantasyland and parts of Sleeping Beauty Castle.
And it famously passed right through the Matterhorn Mountain in a section of the ride called the Glacier Grotto. It was awesome to see the coaster from the Sky Bucket and the Sky Bucket from the coaster.
The ExtraTERROR-Alien Encounter at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom used to fascinate me. It seemed like something much more suited to a Universal park, or at least Hollywood Studios. This ride that ran from 1995 to 2003 was toned down to become Stitch's Great Escape, another fun, defunct ride.
The Alien Encounter took itself seriously, and like the Tower of Terror, it was out to scare you. It was essentially a show that used incredible sound design, lighting, and effects to simulate a captured alien creature getting loose and wreaking havoc on the room and everyone in it.
It was probably my first really intense theme park scare, and it definitely made an impression. I'd love to experience it again as an adult and judge how scary it really was.
Part of the chair.
This charming trolley used to circle around the fountains of Mickey's Toontown at Disneyland.
Back when Toontown first opened, we simply loved the land. Goofy's bounce house was there were little Roger Rabbit shows in the land, and everything was shiny and new.
The trolley bounced a little as it rode around Toontown, circling the fountains. It was amazing. Riding it is a wonderful memory.
Hey, who's the wise guy up there?
In answer to Universal Hollywood's Backlot Tour, Disney created a pretty epic tour for MGM Studios, and at first, it was spectacular. For some time, the Backlot was actually being used for productions as well as tours, and there was a lot going on.
It seems like they just don't make Disney rides that last this long anymore. But the Backlot Tour was extensive, with walking and riding portions, and it focused on movie and theater production. I remember going through it with my school friends, and we got to see miniature sea battle filming techniques and participate with green screen work with the giant bee from the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids film.
And the whole thing culminated with a tram tour that included a stop at Catastrophe Canyon, which had a pretty spectacular effects show.
What makes Universal Hollywood's tour still work after all these years is that it's a working studio and backlot. Once real production pulled out of MGM Studios and the Backlot Tour became a facsimile of one, it really lost something. But for a while, it was a great ride.
This ride took us into outer space on a huge rocket. Mission to Mars is a retooled version of Rocket to the Moon, a 1955 ride at Disneyland that had to be updated once we actually did land on the moon in 1969.
By the time I got to riding this, it had a huge pre-show with a massive mission control that to this day is what I think of for mission control for spaceflight. And Mr. Johnson was the animatronic flight director.
Inside the circular theater, multiple screens allowed you to see in front of and below the rocket as it blasted off past the moon, touring Mars until getting damaged by a volcano and having to head back home.
3, 2, 1.
At Disneyland, this really fun 4D film was both the successor and the predecessor to Captain EO. It took over at the Tomorrowland Theater in 1998, and then it ran for 12 years before Captain EO was brought back, not long after Michael Jackson passed away.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is a really fun Disney franchise, and Rick Moranis starred in this adaptation for the parks. It was a huge hit, and I remember the audience just howling with enjoyment during this one.
The entire theater acted as a giant gimbal, and it could raise several inches, creating movement that synchronized with the film. And there was lighting, compressed air, and water effects too.
Wayne Szalinski, played by Rick Moranis, accidentally unleashes his shrinking machine on the audience in this 4D film, and we got to go on a wonderful tiny adventure.
Sorry everybody, the machine blew a fuse.
Maelstrom at Epcot was one of the best original Disney dark rides ever built in our opinion.
Most rides found in the World Showcase at Epcot are there to showcase a country, but Maelstrom took you on an adventure using mythology and mystery to give us the experience of Norway.
The reversing log flume style is such a fascinating ride system. I'll never forget as a kid standing outside the attraction and watching the end of the boat stick out and pivot before seeing the boat drop forward and hearing the screams of the riders.
And the ride managed to start with a river flanked by mythological gods and trolls and end up in the North Sea passing by an oil rig.
In the long run, we think Maelstrom greatly benefits the current ride, Frozen Ever After, by giving it such an interesting ride system and layout to overlay its story onto.
Well, that's it for us today.
We turn it over to you. What now-gone Disney park attraction did you ride as a child that made a huge impact on you?
Let us know in the comments.
We'll see you real soon, Mouseketeers.
See you real soon.